D-Day, Manoeuvre warfare and its availability to German forces. The first tenet of the British Army's capstone doctrine is the manoeuvre approach to operations. Were the Germans able to execute this approach on D-Day? In order to answer this question, it is worth defining the levels of warfare and where manoeuvre warfare is doctrinally used. Warfighting is fought on three levels: strategic, operational, and tactical. Strategic warfare is concerned usually with the outcome of the war or campaign. Operational level warfare is concerned with specific areas of operations within a campaign. Tactical levels of operations are the areas where individual battles are fought, and this is where the British Army's doctrine explicitly states that this method of warfare is employed. It could be defined as the means of indirect warfare that seeks to pitch strength against weakness in order to break the fighting will and cohesion of the enemy. Its polar opposite is direct attritional warfare, where an opponent will win or lose in direct relation to the depletion of personnel or material, rendering them unable to fight. The foundational pillars of manoeuvre warfare are as follows: attitude of mind and understanding. Attitude of mind: to seek the indirect approach, to target an enemy's weaknesses and have an effect that is greater than the effort expended. This is achieved by retaining the initiative, using original and unexpected ideas, and in doing so, accepting the inherent risks. The other is a fundamental understanding of how to apply this method, by anticipating the enemy's own use of manoeuvrist techniques and knowing yours and your enemy's fundamental strengths and weaknesses. Key to implementing all of these strategies is the ability to seize and hold the initiative, and the doctrine states 7 principles of manoeuvre that will enable this. Tempo: quick, sound decisions, efficiently implemented by good procedures and good mission command, where command is decentralised, if necessary, to the individual, whilst having an effect on the commander's intent. Surprise: gaining an advantage by performing an unexpected action. Preemption: to recognise an opportunity that may be fleeting and exploit it. Momentum: maintaining the drive of a moving object, to keep the enemy from finding their centre of gravity, and in doing so, denying the enemy the ability to gain the initiative. Simultaneity: the ability to disrupt coherent thought and activity by presenting the enemy with a multiple threat and action. Exploitation: to ensure that successes in battle are maintained and reducing the enemy's ability to counter. Avoiding culmination: knowing when friendly forces or elements of them require reduction or cessation of activity to replenish their personnel or equipment. The effective use of the 7 aspects of manoeuvre will have the following effect on the enemy's will and cohesion. Will: the attack on the enemy's will have the effect of convincing them that their aim is no longer achievable and they will lose their desire to persevere. Cohesion: the enemy's will and ability to form a force that is greater than the sum of its parts is destroyed. Once the will and cohesion of an enemy is broken, the following have been achieved. Dislocation: denying the enemy the ability to form a cohesive fighting force due to their physical location or mental conviction that their attempts to do so would be irrelevant. Disruption. The destruction or incapacitation of the enemy's vital physical assets that contribute to a cohesive force, such as the disruption of command nodes, supply channels, and lines of communication. Destruction. The complete elimination of all or certain parts of an enemy's assets or personnel. Setting the scene for D-Day and the factors that affected the Germans to use manoeuvre warfare. Home deception. The Allied forces, through deception, had convinced Hitler that the port of Calais or occupied Norway would be the focal point for any Allied invasion. The deception plan was so large it had its own codename, Operation Fortitude, a complete dummy force, complete with a field army, aircraft, landing crafts and tanks, and fabricated communications. The fictional force was commanded by none other than General Patton. Rough seas. The night of the invasion, the seas between England and France were ravaged by a severe storm, convincing the German commanders that an invasion would be impossible that night. Even Erwin Rommel, the commander in Normandy, had returned back to Germany to celebrate his wife's 50th birthday that night. The Allies, however, used this to their advantage, spotting a gap in the storm around midnight and launching their invasion force. Hitler, also in Germany, was caught completely by surprise by the invading force, and even when he was told, believed it was a diversionary tactic for the main invading force to invade Calais or Norway. No port. German commanders knew that any invasion required a port, and so concentrated their defences on the docks along the French coastline. The Allied commanders knew this also. In what was pure ingenuity, a floating dock of concrete and steel was constructed and towed to where they could be used in the days following D-Day to facilitate the logistics of the invasion. Air superiority. Although not completely unmolested, the Allied forces had air superiority over occupied France. Weeks before D-Day, Allied bombers had been pummelling targets where the invasion would take place, softening up defences. The accuracy of the bombing of the Atlantic Wall is still hotly contested, with reports of bombs completely missing their targets, especially where the greatest Allied casualties were taken on Omaha Beach. Air superiority also enabled the delivery of airborne troops inserted behind the Great Atlantic Wall's defences. Allied fighters also wreaked havoc on formations inland, crippling efforts to send men and machinery to defend the coast. Quality of troops on the Atlantic Wall. The troops stationed on the Atlantic Wall were not of the highest quality, and in many cases were quickly overwhelmed. Omaha Beach was the best defended beach, causing most of the Allied casualties. This was mainly due to the fact that by chance a Nazi invasion exercise in the immediate area had coincided with the invasion. Positioning of SS Panzer divisions. The positioning of the SS Panzer divisions was crucial to counter any Allied invasion. Rommel favoured placing the divisions close to the beaches, immediately behind a line of infantry divisions and the coastline's defences, to immediately counter any attempt to take the beaches or ports. Hitler and Rommel's superior, Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, favoured keeping panzer divisions concentrated some 50 miles behind the coast. The rationale for this was they could better move to counter wherever the invasion happened. However, in reality, they were pinned down by Allied air superiority and could only move at night. The only division able to react due to their proximity in Normandy was the 21st Panzer Division, 2/3 of which were involved in dealing with British airborne troops who had landed behind Sword Beach. Eventually, 2/3 of the division were sent to the beach to repel the attack, but only 1/3 made it and was able to link up with a trapped German infantry unit still holding their positions. The panzer commander who made it through halted the British assault, and ordered reinforcements. Soon after, the panzers at the beach watched wave after wave of Allied air assault troops fly over them, and they were ordered to pull back to defend the tactically important town of Caen. Many historians proposed that if many divisions had been placed along the coast, as the 21st Division had been, and their success could have been replicated, an invasion could have been repelled. This also adds to the notion that Hitler's tactical meddling frustrated the effectiveness of his top commanders. Some questions that help answer the questions. Were the Germans able to execute the manoeuvre approach on D-Day? Had the tactical level of deploying troops been affected by overly rigid strategic level planning? Did the German command consider the possibility of their enemy doing the unexpected and the possibility the Allies would expose themselves to great risk? Did the Germans consider fully the possibility of the Allies using originality and ingenuity in order to have an increased effect on D-Day? Did the German command mitigate the risks of air superiority, hampering their ability to conduct manoeuvre warfare? What were the benefits and limitations of the Nazis' Great Atlantic Wall? Thank you for listening. I hope you found this useful, and I hope that it informs discussion at Merville Battery on a forthcoming battlefield tour.